きラーメンがいいと思う。
パンダ。
Well, this kinda awkward. I think I'm just gonna go check on the takoyaki party next door. Yeah, hi. I just wanted to make sure that the deposit on that new apartment went through. Continuing from the events of last week, we got a little more explanation of Ron's plans for Kirsta, in that she was going to shift more to takeout restaurants and I guess encourage all of her followers to use Uber Eats more. Sell out! But yeah, I guess it kinda makes sense, as by literally spreading the love, it would also thin out the hearts that attract the food fairies. That said, I also can't help but wonder if Toy was also trying to encourage everyone to keep up that social distancing. To complete her page's renewal, Ron tried to pick out a new icon, and sensibly was going to go with her family's ramen, but Kokone suggested the panda mascot.
可愛いし、目立つから目に留まる。パンダでフォロワーが増えるかも。
No, the real trick is to load up your thumbnail with as much junk as possible. Wait, what were we talking about? But yeah, even though this was meant to trigger the conflict of this episode, I personally think Ron was totally in the right here. I mean, there's a ton of Kirstas out there, so unless you make it crystal clear what your niche is, it's not gonna attract that many new followers in spite of what Kokone says here. I mean, unless some people are really into Kung Fu Panda, ramen isn't going to be the first thing people associate with pandas, but whatever, conflict of the episode established. And all that said, I do like how this wasn't the sole reason why both parties thought that things were awkward between them. Jeez, the Conan spin-offs are getting weird. By the way, anyone else looking forward to Hanzawa-san besides me? But yeah, as we pretty much all knew, because of anything, the characterization of the show has been quite good. These two were almost polar opposites in terms of personality, except for the fact that they both worried what the other thought about them. Not helped by the fact that kids shows these days, with obviously the exception of Precure, delivered their messages very poorly. God, Studio Dean's quality just keeps slipping when it's not Konosuba. Though seriously, if this was meant to parody how children's shows' messages are delivered haphazardly, well, that is a bit of the pot calling the kettle black there, you know. Still, at least for this episode, I did really like this setup with both parties having opposite opinions, and yet were almost identical at their cores. Hell, left alone, things probably would have worked out on their own, and the two would have probably got along eventually. But no, of course these little guys had to butt in, and Komi, could you, stop playing with your tail so much? Anyway, they set up the titular takoyaki party of the episode. Meanwhile, at the lair of the bundles, we finally got to see that one dude from the opening who was kind of pointlessly shaded out if this was just going to be his introduction.
Hey, wait a minute, did she call me a sissy?
Yeah, I didn't even have to ask what this dude's major character trait was. Though he did seem capable of backing up his smugness, having created some kind of plot-relevant device, which, considering a certain character in the room, we're probably gonna get another Nakisakebe card situation, hopefully with a little less bondage so that no one goes to jail. And speaking of whom, Gento was going to be the main baddie again this week, even though we now have 3 generals. God, y'all are lazier than the guys from last season whose whole gimmick was that. Anyway, he joined in on their little salute based off of Shocker and totally no one else in history. Bundaru, bundaru! I prefer his other catchphrase. Anyway, after showing some freshly slaughtered cephalopod, gotta love it when this franchise is unintentionally morbid, they gave Ron her brand new toy as a sign of their friendship, and totally not to sell more of these things that apparently can't even hold liquid. Anyway, Ron took charge of the first round of takoyaki cooking. Oh, come on, that's not how you do it. However, this did end up leading into another conflict with Kokone that was a little more understandable, as it was a matter of subjective taste, with Kokone saying that the takoyaki was too sweet. Both couldn't really agree with the other's taste, which is perfectly fine, just let Kokone have the next turn at making them, but then they had to go and try to force a consensus.
でも、たまには先に食べてもいいかも。デリシャスマイル
Wow, didn't take long before the show itself kind of admitted that catchphrase was pointless. And unknowingly, Pom Pom and Mem Dragon only kept starting the pod and even tried to drag Yui into their antics.
仲良し。こんな時、おばあちゃんが言ってたことがあるんだけど。
無駄口聞くんじゃないよ。食べ物は出てきた瞬間が一番美味しいんだ。
That said, I am again digging the setup, as while what they're doing was counterproductive, the fairies weren't necessarily being stupid, just short-sighted, as relationships like Kokone and Ron's can work themselves out, as evidenced by them getting along when taking care of Komekome. Thus, logically, it would make sense to take it a step further and have them work together to take care of the baby fox, and it did even kind of work at first. However, human emotions are often not driven solely by logic, as something they should have expected happened. Mrs. Arkaze, we need some help here! This resulted in one of the most unavoidable of arguments, unless you're single, parenting. And it did a good job establishing how Ron and Kokone approached their problems. The former went more with her instincts, while the latter needed to plan things out. Yeah, this setup is a little played out and an obvious conflict for these two, but still, it's been nicely told throughout this episode. Granted, I don't know how it circled back to the icon argument here, but whatever, at least we got some pretty meme-worthy faces on top of all the others in this episode. Nothing folder-worthy, but still worth bringing up here. Meanwhile, Gentle launched her 9th attack in a row in the show.
2匹か。まあいい。
You say that as though it's made any difference at this point. Also, where's the Taiyaki to make this a proper Blade reference? Well, anyway, for once she tried to get away before the Precure found her, but she chose the worst way to do so. Naruto running doesn't actually work! Also, I excused last week for not having the group transformation and roll call because they did need to highlight Ron a little more, but still, come on, nothing this week either? Anyway, the fight this week was pretty damn good, if only because it highlighted the conflict between the Spotlight characters, and them being unable to sync up when the monster managed to effectively shift between offense and defense. As a result, it did leave them open to an attack when they chose the worst time to start dissing each other. Okay, nobody move, nobody move. The cosplayer just lost her color contact. These things are expensive, so let's try to find it as quickly as possible. This gave our protagonist time to regroup, and for Yui to remember her grandmother's quotes, which was your basic opposites attract allegory, though again, I think Granny Tendo's quotes are better and far more topical.
慌てて飲み込んじゃいけないものが2つある。テレビの言うお正月のお餅だ。
Still, this convinced the two to take the advice of the other.
Oh, get over it, Yanni. It's just a dent. You'll live. Oh! 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 Oh!
Yeah, apparently this was Ron's interpretation of Kokone's playing things out first mindset, though isn't aiming for the legs a basic combat skill. Frankly, I think Kokone did better when she exhibited her friend's impulsive mindset by using a different application of her sandwich press. Still, nitpicks aside, it was fun to see this team working together, with even Rosemary getting in on the action as the main strategist, making for a good sequence, minus more of the damn Naruto running. They defeated the monster, and as if all of this foreshadowing wasn't blatant enough.
操り人形の糸が切れかかっているようだな。
This is what happens when y'all just keep digging for those leaks. The show itself stops giving a crap about spoilers. Anyway, the two cures made up, with some more blatant product placements, though at least we also got some more literal development, as Komekome digivolved into her in training form.
あらあら、コメコメったら。嬉しくてまた一段と成長しちゃったわね。考察ありがとう。
Phew, I was scared we weren't going to see that counter this week. Then the episode ended with them somewhat taking my advice and fully shopping together a new icon for Ron's Kirsta, and easily Rosemary's best delivered line in the show so far.
いや、急に成長しすぎよ。
That's what she said. This was a pretty good episode with some nice bonding between the non-pinks of this show. Sure, it's a bit of your box standard teen conflicting episode, but if it's handled well enough, I don't mind. That said, I do wish we could have seen at least a little more of an actual introduction for Narcissus this week, like maybe finally not have Gentle do all of the grunt work of the show, and also, I just really want to say that name more. But honestly, I'm not kidding here, I am really glad that the narrator is finally starting to dial it back in the show. My biggest problem with this series so far has been the over-explaining of things, mostly through that disembodied voice, even though anime is a visual medium. Show, don't tell, as I keep saying, and while that problem hasn't completely gone away, that last line from Narcissus just infuriates me, at least the main conflict of this episode between Ron and Kokone was left completely untouched. Thus, viewers could interpret and enjoy this story on its own merits, which overall was very solid. There was just a lot of subtle cues that could be dug into and interpreted in different ways here, kind of appropriate considering this all stemmed from subjective opinions. Not everyone is going to agree on everything, and we should just accept that, and if needed, maybe find some compromises. I really liked how this lesson was told overall, with everyone and everything acting fairly logically. Yeah, there was some stuff I could nitpick, but again, that might be just more subjective matters. And as a result, we got one of the better fights this week, and a satisfying resolution. I still have some major issues with this Amine/Gentle subplot, which has now been confirmed to be brainwashing, and judging by next week's preview, I think we might be getting a 6 Ranger even earlier than Laura from last year. Granted, they might have moved it up in the episodes due to that little hiatus, but still, it's not making me hopeful for this inevitability. Still, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because overall, this was a very solid episode with some good character building, great animation, and the narrator taking a hike for the most part. Hopefully, she'll just retire at this point and be replaced with Grandy Tendall. That would be awesome. Currently, we're working on something a little different with a card game anime, one that's really popular in Japan, but not so much here as it never really got a chance to break out in the West. To put in perspective, here are some of the IPs it managed to collab with. Yeah. But yeah, it should be a nice change up for this channel now that we've hit 7K, and should be trying to broaden our audience. Hopefully, many of y'all will take to it, or at the very least, find some interest in something that isn't Yu-Gi-Oh!, though those videos are coming soon too. So look forward to that. And until then though, for now my friends, and just in case you're wondering, yes, these guys are real, and I in fact made them from microwave, so I'm actually curious how they taste. Let's try one. Okay, that one's a little too soft there. Alright, okay. Wow, these things are soft. Okay. That looks lovely. Okay. That's actually really good. If you ever find frozen takoyaki, I recommend them. Get these.